Cave in Mount Hira, the revelation came. Read, O Muhammad, read in Allah.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. الحمد لله حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا كريم. We are here today by the grace of Allah Azza wa Jalla at the Cave of Hira, where the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam used to spend nights after nights in the worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. As Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha describes him, she says that كان يتحنث عليه الصلاة والسلام. He used to do tahannuth, which means that he used to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. Tahannuth is one of those words that gives an opposite meaning of the real meaning. Hinth means a sin, and the Prophet ﷺ used to do tahannuth, and then he used to stay away from sin. So he'd come here, alayhi salatu wasalam, in the worship of Allah, time in and time out, and spend nights here. Here is where it all started. 1400 years of legacy. Masajid built, dynasties passed, built, and also finished. All of that, it all started in one particular place, and that's right over here. If you want to bring the camera here so the brothers can see what exactly it is that we're talking about. Here is where it all started. The Prophet ﷺ would sit in this cave right here, and he would worship Allah time in and time out. And as the Prophet ﷺ, in one of these nights, he was coming to Allah Azza wa Jalla in servitude, down came the angel Jibreel, the same angel that came to all the other angels, and he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he grabbed the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, "Iqra." And the Prophet ﷺ replied back to him saying, "Ma ana biqari." He said to the Prophet ﷺ, "Read." And the Prophet ﷺ wasn't a reader, he was unlettered, unschooled, but at the same time he was extremely intellectual, extremely smart, extremely well behaved, and that's something that is virtuous in all people that are not schooled, but naturally and innately they're very well mannered and well handled. So the Prophet ﷺ said, I'm not someone that can read. And then Angel Jibreel said to him again, "Read." And the Prophet ﷺ said, "I can't do it." And he said to him again, and he said,
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم.
And think now, dear brother, think now, dear sister, about the first message that Allah Azza wa Jal passed down to humanity for the rest of mankind. So long as people live on the face of the earth, He said, "Read in the name of your Lord." As in, study Islam, dear brothers. Study the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Realize that which is upon you and that which is for you and that which has been legislated for you by Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this same surah, at the end of the surah, He gives us another message, and both of the messages go hand in hand. كَلَّا لَا تُطِعْهُ وَاسْجُدْ وَاقْتَرِبْ. He said that, nay, do not follow him in the least. And then He said, make prostration to Allah Azza wa Jal, prostrate to Allah Azza wa Jal, and waqtarib, and come closer and closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. He's trying to tell you, Allah Azza wa Jal, and by the way, this is also another pointer, oftentimes the beginning of the surah and the last of the surah have a reason, or the last verse of the surah have a reason why they're that way. Allah sometimes in certain surahs is trying to give you a message from the beginning, the matla, and the end of the surah. And over here the message is, read for the sake of your Lord, with the name of your Lord, by the name of your Lord that has created you, i.e. study the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, learn the message of Allah Azza wa Jal, الَّذِي عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ. And He says in a few verses, a couple of verses later, He said, الَّذِي عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ, the one that He taught you through the pen. As in, use that pen, use the tools that Allah Azza wa Jal has given you to study His deen. And at the end He says, also don't forget that you have to use that knowledge that you gain to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. Here we are, we're looking at the athar, the left behinds of the Prophet ﷺ, where he used to come, and the different things that are pertinent and relative to the Prophet ﷺ, where it all started, and the message and the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ is never ending. Unlike the legacy of any other king that dies, any other person that dies, any other individual that dies, period, their mention and their legacy decreases. Whereas the legacy of our Prophet ﷺ is always at a positive influx. And that's where Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha says, she says, إِذَا مَاتَ قَرْبٌ قَلَّ وَاللَّهِ ذِكْرُهُ وَذِكْرُ أَبِي مُذْ مَاتَ وَاللَّهِ أَزْيَدِ. Whenever an individual passes away, a really popular individual, someone really big, he passes away. Whenever he passes away, his mention and his legacy decreases. Whereas my father, Fatima's boasting, and she's saying, whereas my father, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his mention is always at a positive influx. It's always increasing. وَكَانَتْ فِي حَيَاتِكَ لِي عِظَاتٌ وَأَنْتَ الْيَوْمَ أَوْعَظُ مِنْكَ حَيَّةٌ. And in your lifetime, and again this was a statement, but it's very true about the Prophet ﷺ as well, that your life had admonition for me therein. And now that you have passed away and you are deceased, your life is even more of an admonition. And the life of the Prophet ﷺ is surely a message and admonition, an example for us. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us the tawfiq to practice and convey what we have said, and to learn more and more that will benefit us in the hereafter, and to love the Prophet ﷺ, and to increase that love of the Prophet ﷺ by looking at the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ, the places that he went. The Sahaba didn't used to see a spot that the Prophet ﷺ was sitting except that they would go sit. The Prophet used to come here and he would worship. At least we should come and see how the Prophet ﷺ used to do it. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.